Anywhere there is a dictator, he's always concerned about a threat to his chair. Take Stalin, take Hitler, now take Xi. Before this was Deng. Now, Xi Jinping, over the last few years, this is just the latest and the topmost person to have gone, or the top two to have gone. Let me just put this across. Xi Jinping said, and he's made it clear, that it is the party's army.
Parties army. Yeah.
It swears by Xi Jinping. Now, there are claims that there was an attempted coup and these guys were arrested. You look at the leadership, you're looking at it at two levels. Operations at the lower level, involving small formations, is vastly different than where it involves a top hierarchy at a bigger level. So that Trump is telling everybody, Bhai Sahab, you've looted me enough, now I'm going to get my share back from you. The trade imbalances are not in our favor, so the trade balance, and now I'm going to resort that out. Now Mark Carney is crying. Where were you when all this was happening? Where was Canada? Now that you are being hit, you are now trying to create a scene and try to become a hero. Hero to whom? All these years when you were supported, you were accepting all, you were acting like a big boss because you had US support.
Right.
Now that the US is telling you, please, you exploited us enough, now come down to Mother Earth.
दोस्तों, मैवरिक जियोपॉलिटिक्स के आज के सेशन में आप सबका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। मैं स्वागत करना चाहूंगा मेरे आज के गेस्ट मेजर जनरल हर्ष कक्कर साहब। थैंक यू सो मच सर फॉर ज्वाइनिंग।
Total pleasure.
थैंक यू सर फॉर ज्वाइनिंग आवर चैनल। सर वी वांट योर 30 minutes फॉर टू टॉपिक्स। वी कैन टॉक ऑन मे बी चाइना's पर्ज, आर्मी में जो पर्ज हुआ है उनका, and then we can maybe also talk on the Canada-US relations, sir. Yeah. Shall we begin with, sir, the China topic, sir?
Yeah.
Right, sir. Right, sir. We have seen a lot of purge, especially the faction of Zhang Yuxia, and ऐसा लगता है कि Xi Jinping is little worried as far as his power consolidation is concerned. What's your thoughts, sir, on this?
See, anywhere there is a dictator, he's always concerned about a threat to his chair. Take Stalin, take Hitler, now take Xi. Before this was Deng. Especially when all power is controlled with one individual. Now, the threat that you face makes you paranoid. And in any country, you look at what happens in Africa, look what's happening in our neighborhood in Pakistan. The one power which is a threat to any ruler is the armed forces, largely the army, which is why you find that it is the army which actually controls the country from behind. Now, for a dictator, he survives on keeping divisions amongst the top hierarchy. He survives on keeping them suppressed. And invariably, there is a regular purge or a movement of the top brass. The reason being, there's always a fear that in case a person gets powerful, he can always be a threat and result in dismissal or overthrow. Now, that is exactly what is happening in China today. Now, Xi Jinping, over the last few years, this is just the latest and the topmost person to have gone, or the top two to have gone. Over the last few years, there has been a purge. Defense ministers have been moved. The whole rocket force has been shaken. What happens after that is a flow of rumors. Now, there are claims that there was an attempted coup and these guys were arrested. There is a claim that he's challenging his power and he's becoming a parallel authority. All of these are largely rumors. The point is, if Z has to remain in power, he has to ensure that the top brass of the army is either divided or afraid of being removed. So, thereby, what do the people do? The senior hierarchy spends more time displaying loyalty to Z than professionalism. Secondly, in these countries, a person is promoted not because of his professionalism, but because of his loyalty.
Right.
Now, why was, say, for example, let's go back in Pakistan and you would find the difference. Musharraf was, I mean, he superseded a number of people. It was because at that time he was the one who displayed loyalty towards Nawaz Sharif.
Right.
Why did Asim Munir become the chief by overriding a number of people? Not because he was professionally competent, but because for Nawaz and Shehbaz Sharif, he was the individual who hated Imran Khan more than they did.
Right.
After all, it was Imran Khan who removed Asim Munir from
Similar.
the post of DGISI.
Correct.
And he had the shortest tenure in the history of Pakistan as DGISI.
In fact, he was the master planner of the Pulwama attack. Right.
So basically, it was because of his reason.
Right.
Today, he himself is a threat to Shehbaz. Right. So for same thing is happening. What happened to Stalin prior to the Second World War? He purged the entire military hierarchy, assuming that they were more inclined towards his predecessor than him. All of them vanished. And when the Second World War started, he literally had no trained generals. Now, in Z's case also, the purge has been going on over the years. If you look at the list, I mean, forget about just the army. Overall purge, there is a claim that there have been between 5 million to 10 million who have vanished behind prison or for whatever reason. Now, the entire hierarchy of the rocket force, two defense ministers, they've just gone underground. In the current case, because of his power, there was a belief that possibly it was the fear of a coup or a fear of a counter or being removed in some form or a challenge to his authority. One doesn't know the truth. The truth may never emerge or may possibly emerge when someone else comes to power. But that is a fear that every dictator has. He has a force in which every individual has assured loyalty towards him to secure him. After all, it is the army which has the authority, which has the power to remove. And it is the army which will be exploited to suppress any uprising which comes up. You're seeing that happening in Iran today. So, in such a scenario, in such a country where there is a single party rule and a one man rule, that paranoia is part of the game. And removing of the hierarchy wherever there is a slight bit of doubt. Now he has gone. All those who were loyal to him will now see the exit in some form or the other. There now in these countries, there's another thing which comes out. If you want to progress in life, you have to align yourself with an individual. By aligning yourself with the current vice chairperson of the CMC, Zawa as it is, people were hoping to build their careers. Now that he is gone, all those who were loyal to him will now follow suit. How soon, how openly, how quietly is not known. But that's the way the system works. And those who will now come into power may not be professionally competent, but loyal to the ruler. And in such countries, you will find that the emphasis is to display loyalty rather than professionalism. So it's something which you have to accept, and the regular purge will continue. How will it impact down the line may not be much. It may keep the topmost level people or the next two levels on tender hooks as to who will be next. But down the line, the impact will be less. How
Sir, I have
many
one.
more have gone with him from his personal staff? We don't know.
Ji,
But there would be a big collection.
ji. Sir, I have one question. Our army is extremely professional. We all know that. There is no question about it. While their army is little less professional, I would say, and as you say, it is more into Xi Jinping's, you know, uh, it's a personal kind of an army with a lot of loyalty towards the leader. So,
See,
sir,
it's
is
not
situation
loyalty to the leader. Let me just put this across. Xi Jinping said, and he's made it clear, that it is the party's army.
party's army? Yeah,
It swears by Xi Jinping, right? The party controls the guns. Those are the
ji.
words that he's used. So basically, that's a world of a difference. It doesn't swear loyalty to the constitution.
To the constitution. Yeah. So it is
Now, that is
CCP's
a
a private
difference.
army.
That is the difference.
Yeah.
Or you could say the CCP's private army. He's the head of the CCP.
PLA reports into CCP rather than Chinese
Correct.
people or the being a Chinese
Because
army.
if the CCP is to survive, it needs the support of the PL.
Right. So, sir, in this case, मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि कल चल के वी ऑल नो द वॉर इज इमिनेंट बिटवीन इंडिया एंड चाइना वो होगा छोटा मोटा स्कर्मिश ही क्यों ना हो शायद होगा वो बट देन इन दैट केस हाउ विल चाइनीज आर्मी और रादर पीएलए confront India? We are a professional army. We have learned hard lessons through a lot of battles. हम तो
See,
पाकिस्तान के
two
साथ ही
things.
पांच पांच बार वॉर कर चुके हैं
See,
उनका
there
उनका
are
एक्सपीरियंस उतना है नहीं तो व्हाट्स योर टेक ऑन दैट?
there are few issues that you need to get in. One is professionalism at the top versus when it comes down to skirmishes, it is at the lower level. There's a difference in that aspect. The second aspect, historically, if you look, whenever India has challenged or hit back, China has pulled back.
Right.
Whether it was Doklam,
Yeah.
whether it has been Galwan,
Galwan.
whether it was Nathula ages back,
जी.
or even if you look at Sumdrong Chu, even between Nathula and the other incident was Sumdrong Chu during Sundarji's time. Whenever you've taken a step forward, they pulled back, right? So that has been because they're aware of what our professionalism and capability is. Now, when you look at the leadership, you're looking at it at two levels. Operations at the lower level involving small formations is vastly different than where it involves the top hierarchy at a bigger level. These are local skirmishes, but also at the same time, there is a fear of failure. So that is something that the PLA is unwilling to get in. Because a failure with India will impact the global standing of the PLA. So they've got to take a call which side is their interest. Now, there are lots of stories that are floated about the reason why, including possibly the interest of Xi Jinping on Taiwan. He was slightly hesitant because if you take a move on Taiwan and you don't succeed in the first go, Xi Jinping's chair itself is difficult.
Right.
Whereas the PLA was saying, let's move. So, again, there were disagreements. One doesn't know what the true reasons are because they've given a very vague statement, anti party discipline, or moving against the party, whatever they've given, or corruption, which is the standard statement that you hear from China. How strong, how real, you're not. But one has to be very clear that the purge continues. This is not the end of the purge. It's possibly the beginning of the next phase of the purge. The last phase took in a whole lot of people, largely from the rocket force, largely from including two defense ministers, and a whole lot of people went out. This will be the start of the next purge, and it will be all those loyal to him at different levels who will suddenly find their exit. Whether they will go home quietly, whether they will go behind bars, what will happen is unknown. But there will be a time gap because immediately repeating it could result in a retaliation. So that has to be very carefully handled. And those people have to be picked up in a manner that it doesn't result in a bouncing.
एंड आई थिंक चाइना में तो सर ऐसा है कि पर्ज इज लाइक बंदा ही गायब हो जाता है पूरी तरह से.
It's happened. I mean, in fact, the person who's ruling will ensure that his chair is secure. And to secure it, anyone who is a slight threat, Hitler did that. For
हम्म.
Stalin, a rumor was enough to have that person removed and killed or moved to uh, one of those camps. And the same is happening here. So you just don't know on what grounds, where, and how will it end. But in a dictatorship, wherever there is a one-man rule, such things are common, and it is something which you will have to accept.
बट सर 1 मिलियन इज अ स्टैगरिंग नंबर. आई मीन इज इट वन
They are
मिलियन
talking of 5 to 10 million have been arrested on charges of corruption, this, that, and the works as part of the. But there's been a whole lot of civilian staff that's been picked up. People who've been running, who've been bureaucrats have been picked up on a whole lot of different grounds.
सॉरी दिस इज 10 मिलियन. आई थॉट इट वाज वन
No,
मिलियन
no. The rumors are between 5 to 10 million. One is nobody is certain.
दैट्स स्टैगरिंग नंबर. मतलब इसमें उनके गवर्नमेंट के जो अथॉरिटीज है वो भी इसमें है.
At the provincial level, they've been picked up. They've been diplomats who've gone. I think somebody who was working for the UN. He was recalled on a pretext and he vanished off, and no one saw him again. And then they suddenly said that we placed him under arrest for whatever, whatever. So there are a whole lot of issues that are there. And that is what happens in these countries. And for any small reason, you can just vanish.
दैट इज क्रेजी विद चाइना. दिस कैन ओनली हैपन इन चाइना सर.
Yes. No, in any such nation. Stalin did even worse.
ओह ओके.
Deng was even worse. So it depends on the individual, and it depends. And as he's growing older, you've got to realize he's in his 70s. The paranoia starts to build.
या.
He has not nominated a successor. So there is nothing as such which is nominated as the next. So as long as he continues, that fear of being removed will always exist.
करेक्ट सर. राइट. Very true. Sir, can we move on to our next topic? This
Definitely.
is little skirmish at the North American region as well. डावोस में हमने देखा सर जिस तरीके से यूएस के अगेंस्ट काफी लोग खड़े हो गए. मार्क कार्नी वाज अ स्टार्टलिंग एग्जांपल. इनफैक्ट ही वाज हेल्ड एज अ हीरो अमंग ऑल द एडवर्सरीज ऑफ जो कि एडवर्सरी अभी हो गए यूएस के देयर अर्लियर फ्रेंड्स. तो इसमें सर हाउ डू यू सी कनाडा एंड यूएस का रिलेशंस. इनफैक्ट अभी आई थिंक ट्रम्प इज लिटिल मोर एग्रेसिव टुवर्ड्स कनाडा इज व्हाट द न्यूज़ इज कमिंग आउट.
See, why did Mark Carney go against the US? You look at it over the years, what was happening? Canada always believed that it was supported by the US, it could do what it wants. When the US decided to enter Iraq, Canada was there.
Yeah.
Whatever the US did, whether it overthrew the government of Iraq, Libya, it bombed Iran a few months ago, everywhere and every time, it's sanctions on Cuba for decades, sanctions on Venezuela, Canada has stood alongside.
Yeah.
When has Canada questioned and said the US is wrong? Why did Trudeau have the guts to blame India on Niger's killing?
Correct.
Why did things worsen up between India and Canada in Trudeau's time? Because it had US backing.
US backing. Yeah.
So, because it had the backing and it supported the US and the US supported him, Canada thought it was in pig's back. Now that Trump is telling everybody, Bhai Sahib, you've looted me enough. Now I'm going to get my share back from you. The trade imbalances are not in our favor. So the trade balance, and now I'm going to resort that out. Now Mark Carney is crying. Where were you when all this was happening?
Yeah.
Where was Canada? Now that you are being hit, you are now trying to create a scene and try to become a hero. Hero to whom? Now, Europe, he's telling Europe, you cater for your own defense. Europe is suddenly trying to become a hero. All these years when you were supported, you were accepting all, I mean, you were acting like a big boss because you had US support.
Right.
Now that the US is telling you, please, you exploited us enough, now come down to Mother Earth. Now you want to say that I'm going to speak this nonsense?
How ironical is this, sir?
No,
That US
that's
is
what the
saying.
point is. Now, now the next US president will come in 3 years hence who may possibly change Trump's policies. Now again, you'll be a good boy and you will not make such a statement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you being morally correct by making this statement? Second, now the US is now, you see, if you go on the wrong side, you're bound to be bullied. If you don't have the power, you are fully dependent. 75+% of Canadian trade is with the US. Now, sanctions imposed or tariffs imposed, you may impose. Your imports are less. In fact, for the entire car industry, all spare parts are made in Canada and shipped across.
Yeah.
So if there are tariffs imposed, automatically it will be there. Now, it was an open border. There was a lot of free movement of people, free movement of drugs. Recently, that guy has also been arrested, moving a large quantity of drugs. So a whole lot of things were happening. You were keeping quiet all that time. Now that you're being hit, you're crying. Now the latest case is of the F-35. Trudeau ordered, I think, about 88 or something F-35s. The price has gone up by about 3 billion or 4 billion in 4 years. Now they want to reduce it to about 17, 18. And they want to go in for some Italian aircraft or the Euro, or I think Gripen or something, which is a Swedish aircraft. The US ambassador to Canada made it very clear. You go for an aircraft that is not matching with us, since either we will reconsider NORAD with the North American security, air defense security, or and we will also have to have our F-35s flying deeper into Canada to ensure our security. As it is, there is an agreement for aircraft from both sides to fly across. But he says we'll fly in far deeper. They don't like it. Now yesterday's news was uh, Trump's administration meeting with people from Alberta who want to break away from Canada. Canada has got a different constitution. Now, for them, as far as this place is concerned, Montreal is the capital of which province, slipping my mind. Now, those guys are basically French Canadians. They've had two or three voting rounds on splitting from Canada, but they've continued. Now, Alberta will be the next. And Alberta is where all the oil of Canada is. I remember 2006 when I was in Canada doing a course with the Canadian forces. Alberta was the only province which paid back part of the tax which you have deposited because of surplus income. So they produce the oil, they've got a smaller population, and they are much better off. That is the one which Trump is interested in. Sorry, I was talking of Quebec province, of which Montreal is the capital. They wanted to break away. Twice, thrice they've had their referendums. So he is exploiting Canada. He's pushing Canada. And naturally, he will push because he wants to reconsider the North American Treaty involving Canada, US, and Mexico.
Mexico.
That treaty is due for renewal end of this year, which is what he's going to change to favorable terms. Now it
This is a
favors
kind of a
Canada
free
and
trade agreement,
Mexico.
right, sir? ये एक
Hmm?
free trade agreement है
It's
between.
something like a free trade agreement, but not exactly free trade, but it benefits these two countries and not the US. So basically, that is what he's doing. And naturally, when Kane all these years was banking on US support, and suddenly when he finds that reducing, he criticizes the US and Trump's policies without naming Trump or the US. Naturally, it's bound to hit back. As long as you could gain, you were very happy. Now that you can't gain, you're complaining. So there is a difference. And I guess that is how the global system works. He was not the only one.
Yeah.
The German chancellor supported him. Today, the India EU free trade agreement is also to some extent because of Trump. The defense agreement is also on some account because of the threat of the US, warning Europe that you have to cater for your own security. So all these issues have come up, and the impact is across the board. But at the same time, you also got to realize that as long as you were supporting them, they were supporting you. You cared a damn. They bombed Kosovo in 1999 without UN sanction. You did that on Iraq, Libya, wherever you went. Europe stood with you, nobody bothered. They were very happy. India, Canada, miserable bloody treatment that was, between the two nations, the way the diplomatic ties went down because of US backing.
Yeah.
Now, can they do that? There's a difference.
अभी तो it is like Canada cannot think of doing that because Makani will be here in March,
Uh,
and so they
See,
can't.
now
So
they're looking, no, now they've realized that 78% dependence on US is wrong.
yeah,
Now they desperately want to expand markets. If you look across the world, there are only two countries to whom everybody is running: India and China. That's it. Because these are the two of the largest markets. After US, the most powerful economies. And the way the nations are growing and the market is there, you want an agreement here because that is where you will gain. That was something which Trudeau missed out because he was very happy with that 75% trade. But that is the difference that is there. And that is why the EU, whether it's Britain, we already have a free trade agreement with the UK.
yeah.
Now it's the EU, Brazil is coming in, Ghani is coming in, the German Chancellor is rushing in. Everybody is running here. You're either running to India and you're running to China. Ghani went to China, he's coming here. The German Chancellor was in China, he's coming here. So everyone is moving this side.
German Chancellor had already come here, sir.
I think he
Was
scheduled, who scheduled in February? He scheduled again in February, I think, if I'm not
February
mistaken.
May Macron is coming, sir.
Macron is coming, and I think Samacha. Okay. So Macron is coming in
German
February.
Chancellor Merz was already here. Then he
Correct.
signed on the
Correct.
P75I
Correct.
air independent
Yeah.
propulsion deal.
Yeah. So he's come, Macron is coming in. So why are they running? They're only running to India and China. These are
Correct.
the two countries now in demand.
Correct. Very true, sir.
Now, Kani was the one, his predecessor bucketed up the relations. But today now Kani is coming here to reset. So that is the difference.
अभी कनाडा के केस में सर इट इज लाइक दे कांट हैव अ फ्री ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट विद अस बिकॉज दे ऑलरेडी आर कवर्ड बाय द नाफ्टा द नॉर्थ अमेरिकन फ्री
No, no,
ट्रेड
no,
एग्रीमेंट
no.
बिटवीन
No, he's
यूएस
already
कनाडा एंड
asked.
मेक्सिको.
That is okay. He's already asked for a free trade agreement with India. He said, let's begin negotiations immediately.
So that is sector wise, sir. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that's a sector wise kind of a individual kind of an
See,
agreement.
what they've got within themselves is on their own produce, which is also now actually no longer valid because the US has imposed tariffs. So, इनका जो free trade agreement है, under that agreement, there should have been no tariffs.
Yeah.
But if the US has imposed tariffs, where does that hold ground? So that is where the status is. And now they have to realize that this is the only answer.
कॉमेडी ऑफ एरर्स है. कोई यहां से निकल के कहीं और किसी और के साथ जा रहा है.
That is it.
Geopolitics is changing fast.
Oh, yes.
Very, very fast.
That is something we have to be ready for.
Right. Right, sir. Thank you so much then. These are really great insights from you. Always lovely to talk to you.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Jai Hind. Bharat Mata
Jane,
ki jai. My request to our viewers is to like, share, and subscribe our channel. And thank you so much for being with us. We'll have another coffee session with Harsh sir again. Thank you so much, sir.
total pleasure.
Thank
Okay.
you.